All right, welcome everyone. This is the latest episode of Brew Minds. I'm Jesse, and
Tom.
So here tonight, we are once again at the 50 West Brewing Company, and it's a special show because we have Scott from Blank Slate and Chris, formerly of Mount Carmel, here to talk about their new roles here at 50 West, and we also have the owner and founder of 50 West, Bobby Slattery, here to talk about their expansion plans and 50 Fest and everything else fun coming up.
Scoot this way just like a little bit. You're kind of cut out of the picture. So.
Yeah.
I wasn't
trying to tell him because I'm trying to cut him out of the.
I want to make sure your pretty face is in there.
Last time he wasn't going to tell you. Back here,
don't lean back. All right, so in setting the show up, we didn't. It's a touchy subject on the past, and we weren't entirely sure how to bring this up. So, but Scott, we do have to kind of touch on like the closing of Blank Slate and just kind of your final thoughts and what you want to kind of say to the public. The big question on everyone's mind is kind of what's next with the company.
What's next for Blank Slate?
Yeah, like how things are going to wind down, and then we have a couple more specifically on recipes and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, how it's going to wind down, honestly, I'm still trying to figure that out. I have about 20 different paths in front of me, and none of them go farther than about 1.5 feet. Everything from there might be someone who wants to come in and take over the space and turn it into a different brewery of their own creation. I've, believe it or not, had numerous inquiries about reinvesting and getting it up and running again, none of which have been even remotely close to reasonable or feasible. But it's just funny, I couldn't find those people when I needed them, and we close up and they come out of the woodwork. But that's neither here nor there. Most likely, what's going to happen is honestly we're going to probably be liquidating the equipment, either all to one person or bits and pieces to here and there. Probably it'll end up being bits and pieces to here and there, and it'll just all kind of slowly get cleaned out, and that'll be the end of it. And hopefully there's enough money in doing that to pay off all the people I owe. Otherwise, I'll be, I don't know, moving into an apartment, selling my house, and selling my kid into slavery and whatever.
Living in the new lab building.
Yeah,
I think I speak for everyone when I say we certainly don't.
Yeah, there's lots of places. I've already found there's lots of places around here to hide where no one would find you. So I'm thinking I could probably bunk in here for a while. And no one would
I'm sure those weren't used in Prohibition at all. None of that was used.
So, but no, I mean, to be honest, I mean, really, we're trying to wind down. I laugh about it because I have no choice but to laugh about it. Honestly, it's a pretty shitty situation. I'm dealing with it, day by day. A lot of it's still in the air, but it'll get resolved, and I'll be able to fully focus on what we're doing here.
What?
I know a lot of people are interested about the recipes, their favorite beers from Blank Slate,
Mm-hmm.
and I know you talked to Rick Arman last week, and you'd said that they're all basically just going away for right now, as far as you know. Or?
Yeah, I mean, there's no intentions at this point to say that 50 West is a new Blank Slate or something, and we're going to just bring those beers over here and brew them. There's absolutely no intention of doing that. This is 50 West. That was Blank Slate. They're two different entities. They're two different things. Will some of my techniques and ideas about recipes creep into some of the things we do? Maybe a little bit. I'm actually not in charge of recipe formulation. That's more Chris's role. But everything we do here, beer-wise, is a team effort. So will there be a day where it's like I'm coming up with a recipe and I'm going to brew it in the pub and it's going to be a pub beer and it's going to be something that's very Blank Slate-esque? Yeah, that's going to happen. Is it going to be, hey, let's brew Fork in the Road? No. Fork in the Road is a Blank Slate beer as far as I'm concerned. It dies with Blank Slate. Will there be a creation of a beer that maybe has some hints of the characteristic house character, if you will? Could some of that creep into a few beers here and there? Maybe, but that's really not my intention. I look at it as, Blank Slate was its own thing. It existed. It lived as it was. It will die as it was. It will never be that again. And honestly, it's probably best to just that the world moves on, so to speak.
A tail end to that question, and that's the last I think we'll touch on it. we know that the last shipment is making out to distro. There's
all the
last
last beer actually shipped to our distributor last Friday. So oddly enough, like when it was announced we were going out, apparently there was a run on the shelves, and the shelves have probably been empty for a couple of weeks. What's going to be really weird is probably everyone's already forgot about that. And this weekend, the next, all of a sudden, all those shelves will be stocked again. I promise this is the last time they will be, though. This is it. That was all there was. We had beer in the tanks when we had to make the decision to close. We finished that product out. Because of lots of issues I won't go into, we had to wait and get all that together and do it all at once. All of that shipped. I shipped more beer last Friday than I've ever shipped at one time, period, in my life. But it's done. It's out there. It's gone. Whatever hits the shelves in this next week, that's it. So go get it.
My question I was curious about on that is the beer that you had in barrels. Is there any chance that will see the light of day, maybe through some transference, or is that just...
Yes, there's a chance. Nothing's set in stone at this point. We didn't have a lot of stuff in barrels because we just never could afford, honestly, to put a lot of stuff in barrels. We have a few things that are. I like to believe that most, if not all, that's going to see the light of day. I don't know in exactly what form or through who yet. Some of that was Quaff Brothers beer, so there are abilities to move that through other Quaff Brothers partners, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I have nothing definitive at this point, but yeah, the idea will be hopefully we can get rid of it. Not get rid of it, but
you can just take it all to my house. I have a cellar.
Well, the problem is, none of it was done yet. So, it's all still in the barrels and
just to get back to the recipes real quick. I know at least one person's already asked about Opera Cream. I would love to be able to try and make my own version of Fork in the Road. Do you have any thoughts about releasing recipes on a homebrew level, 5 gallons or something?
I haven't specifically thought about it, but I would have no problem with doing that.
I know a blog that hosting.
Yeah, so that would be the thing. So I number one, I have to scale them down, and then I have to have a place to put them. I would say give me a little bit of time to get some other aspects of my life a bit settled. But yeah, I would have no problem actually with putting out homebrew versions of some of those beers. No problem. So look for that in the future.
Well, at this point, we're going to move on to the next new face in
enough of
that
that.
room.
Old business. New business.
I would say this real quick. It was amazing what you did with Blank Slate. And I think that, like, you touched on some points there and whatnot, but anybody out there that's ever been an entrepreneur or ever took a risk or ever went through anything, what you were able to do with that company, I admire it, and I think everybody else out there looks for it. Looks at it the exact same way. So you hit the touchy subjects that I think are tough, but, like, at the end of the day, I think you accomplished something that was really amazing. And I think that you gained a following and you gained a respect out in the industry, which I know when we were looking around, that was always where it was like, I mean, you and I have been doing this for 5 years together.
You guys opened a month after we did.
I know.
That's how close we were. You were literally at the next.
We were literally at beer festivals together. We've been doing this for 5 years, and I always admired what you were able to do there, because you did it. I mean, literally by yourself, picked yourself up by your bootstraps, figured out how to put it together. And I was so excited when you and I talked about this before, but I was I was like, I wish we could figure out a way to make this thing happen, to figure out a way to make this work. And the reason that was is because I admired you for what you were able to do with that. So
thanks, boss.
I just think you got to bring that up. I think there's tough questions, but you should be proud of yourself for everything you did.
Yeah. I've probably got enough shit that I could write a book that 5 people would buy and read.
I think more than 5.
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
18, maybe.
Maybe someday I'll write.
Hey, I mean, if Rick Armin can make a book, then.
Well, calm down. But I mean, the thing about it too is, like, the Blank Slate blog still technically exists. Like, that won't, that wasn't something I had to pay for, so it'll continue on. So at some point, I've looked at, do I go back and kind of retell the story of Blank Slate from a post-mortem standpoint, in several pieces of maybe that'll happen, when I get some free time and feel a little better about talking. Maybe that'll come out. The tricky thing is it's going to be a depressing read, so like I have to figure out how to make it sound.
Well, I mean,
I have to make it a little more upbeat, but
I would say
see.
more people
Maybe
in
someday.
beer need to hear that. They need to see the realisms of the industry, but also from someone who, as Bobby said, like, did it the right way, did it well, and
the right way is arguable at this point. That's the tricky thing.
But But you focused on making the beer right first, and I think a lot of people lose that, especially a lot of people that are getting into the industry now. It gets lost along the way. But speaking of making the beer right,
let's move on.
Chris,
Yeah.
what made you come to 50 West? Like, what sold you on becoming the head brewer?
Well, I will have to say it was not a decision I took lightly. I love Mount Carmel. Mike and Kathleen were amazing bosses. They took a chance on me. I was not that was my first professional brewing job. But at the end of the day, it's a bigger playhouse for me. We've got, Mount Carmel had 5 fermenters. We've got 13. We've got a bunch of different yeast strains. The whole culture here is new, innovative ideas, and that's what really kind of, pushed me over to do it. So, I don't know, just as easy as that. Just that.
Awesome. I have the next question I have is actually for both of you. 50 West is known for a lot of different beers. I think the one that would jump to everyone's mind would be punch.
Yeah.
But also creativity is like, I think one of your cornerstones here as you guys got started. How much is there going to be kind of like a divide, but also an opening to being able to like bring new things to the table, but making sure that we're continuing those recipes and styles that Blake created? So where do you kind of see like the push pull happening on that? Because when you were at Mount Carmel, you brought a lot of new stuff to the table, like especially like fruit styles or what I would call like dessert styles and stuff. Like you were making some really like crazy off the wall things. But as you guys get bigger and like with the big expansion, like fully ramping up, you're going to have a lot of consistently and pushing out the same product all the time. So where do you guys kind of see that working out?
I mean, from my standpoint, look at how our setup is. I mean, we have over there is being built to scale those production levels. Over here, we get a little playhouse.
It's the proving ground, and then if it sticks, throw it on the wall. If it sticks, kind of move it over. That's how I kind of.
Yeah, and maybe maybe that does it. Maybe sometimes the stuff comes out and it sticks and people love it, but it's not something you scale up, right? Like maybe it's great for what it is in a smaller environment.
Or if I put
scale up, but
500 pounds of fruit in it and you try to brew it over there, and Scott's like, doing the numbers on this, and it's not working out. So
Charge $300 a cake for it.
I think one of the things that
somebody you'll buy it. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
One of the things both of you guys brought up though is I think we may have been kind of underutilizing our production abilities to throw. We were throwing creative, unique beers into the market, but we may be able to do it. Things we've always done really, really well is put together events really well. We execute events really well. And for us, if we can figure out a way to execute the production side of the creativity, meaning figure out how do we more regularly schedule, whether it be special can releases or special bottle releases or things that we can have some fun with. That was something both of them came in and were like, hey, we love the idea that you have literally a playground over at the brew pub that we can just sit here and play with. There's not a lot of breweries in the city that have that opportunity to do that. And so, I mean, that gets me excited. That energizes me from my side.
I mean, totally.
It's just
that's what it's all about, having just both sides.
Now, I touched on fruit beers a little minute ago. I was always very interested in kind of those styles that you were bringing in. Are you expecting to kind of bring a lot of those, or what are kind of like some projects you're excited to bring in?
So,
things that you've been wanting to try but didn't have the time or tank space to do?
Fruit beers, definitely. We've got what I'm deeming a smoothie IPA right now. It's kind of like a play on a milkshake IPA, but with mangoes and passion fruit and vanilla beans and stuff like that. So definitely want to go as far as I can with fruit beers until somebody stops me, really. But all right, every beer on tap is fruit beer. No. But I mean, just like I got into some kettle souring last week, and just having that ability to really, it's great because we go through the production meetings and stuff, and we're like, well, we want to hit, we've got these certain beers that come out, but every couple weeks at least we've got an open brew day, and he's like, just do it, and I'm like,
I might have seen a tank in there that said dry hopped sour.
Yes,
so
that's my first kettle sour. I don't know how many you guys have done here, but
not too many.
yeah,
it's been a little while since we did one. Probably like 2 years since we've done it.
Yeah. So that's it's basically kind of a Berliner base. A lot of wheat, a lot of oats, but dry hop to high hell with Citra and Strata, which is kind of this tropical joint smoke hop. So that should be ready in about a week or so. So yeah, just stuff like that.
So what would you say is your big overriding goal now that you come fully on board here? Like the first thing right out of the box that you want to do? I just want to keep these fresh ideas rolling. Like I want to keep. I mean, they've done a great job with this brand and just kind of the uniqueness of the reputation for uniqueness of beers and stuff like that. I just want to play on that, keep it going, get the bottle releases going, get the sour program going, get the barrels going. I just
have fun.
I just want to have fun. I want to have fun.
Have fun. Like,
Right? Yeah, I want to have fun. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you're just joining us, we are Brew Minds, and we're live here at the 50 West Brew Pub, and we're talking with owner Bobby Slattery and their new production manager, Scott LaFollette. And I'm going to butcher your last name, but Chris Seigman from
Oh my God,
Carmel.
that was terrible.
It's close. Seigman.
Seigman,
Yeah.
okay. It's that EI or IE is always
E.
kind of gets me.
But
But
What's funny is that you got my name right, because my name is way harder than yours.
but I've known you for so much long.
I haven't been to the brewery.
Well, we're actually going to go to you next, Scott. Your role is production manager, and something I notice a lot about like the craft beer community is that we say that we like craft beer, but people don't make a lot of effort to really understand what goes into making the beer and all the behind the scenes jobs that make that happen, whether it be distribution, production management, quality control. A lot of beer nerds just care about like, is it good? Do I like it? When can I get more of it? So can you kind of go into a little depth on what being a production manager is? Like what that job kind of entails?
Sure, yeah. I mean, if I was gonna, production manager is kind of an official sounding title. If I was gonna give it more of a fun naming, I would say I'm the guy in charge of things and stuff. That's basically kind of the way of thinking about it. So when you look at an operation like this, I mean, number one, you have two facilities. Yeah, they're on the opposite sides of the same street, but you really have to think about it in terms of it's literally two different places. They have totally different needs, totally different. It takes totally different things to run them, totally different things. They have two different goals in the beers that they're producing, how they're doing it. So there needs to be some coordination between the staff of both places and the intermingling of the two. But you also, you look at what it takes to kind of make to make all of this stuff work. And at Blank Slate, I literally, any title you could throw to an organization, I had. I was the production manager at Blank Slate, along with many other things. But obviously, as a growing organization and a successful organization, you have to divide all those roles out, obviously. So where I kind of come in, Chris has come in, head brewer, and all the stuff that he just said. Where I come in is what I'm really looking to do and really looking to be is more of kind of the background, the stuff no one ever sees, and honestly, it's not that sexy and no one gives a shit about it. But it has to happen for everything to work properly. So
yeah, I can whip up all these different recipes, but at the end of the day, if it's the fermentation's off, if the sanitation process is wrong, everybody's got. Every part of the brewing process is very, very important.
Yes. So what I'm looking at is really the integration of all parts of the process. So everything from raw materials, making sure we have all the stuff we need to brew the beers we want to brew. Whether it's stuff we've got scheduled out 3 or 4 weeks in advance, or it's, hey, randomly an open spot in the schedule 2 days from now, what can we brew? Like, I'm the guy who has to make it happen, where we can get the stuff we need to do for these guys to do what they need to do. It also works through just the process flow of things. There's the engineering side of things. I mean, there's always stuff that breaks, stuff that needs to be fixed, stuff that needs to be maintained on a regular basis, stuff that just needs to be dealt with. It's as you mentioned, the people who are just want to know, what is it, when can I get it, and how much can I get?
Bloggers that need to be throttled.
Whoever they may be, it doesn't matter. Whoever they may be. The point is, there's a sexy part of, hey man, you can put out a Facebook announcement where we're going to brew this really cool, awesome beer, and we're going to do a can release or bottle release. Come on this date to get it. That's great and that's wonderful. There's 1,000 other things in the background that have to happen for that to actually get pulled off and get pulled off properly, and the beer to be correct, and the beer to be correct when it needs to be correct. So what I'm really kind of coming in as is kind of, I don't want to say the puppeteer, but like the kind of guy in the background who's like, all right, this is what we want to accomplish. Here's all the 40 things we need to do to make that happen that no one knows about or realizes. And I'm going to take care of those things so that on the public side of things or the front of the house side of things, it's all beautiful and wonderful and seamless. And it's like, oh my God, look at all this cool stuff all the time. Well, I'm the guy in the background that's making sure all these guys on the brewing side have what they need when they need it to do the best possible thing they can in the best way that they can with the highest quality and the best innovation that they can. So I'm moving into, honestly, you could argue it's a very unsexy role, and I'm totally okay with that. I am totally okay with doing all of that, because it's honestly, with all the things that I did at Blank Slate and all the things that I was involved in, that honestly, number one, were not my forte, but I had to do them. Just that's the way it was. At the end of the day, the stuff that I'm good at, and I've learned this through the years, stuff that I'm good at is the engineering, the process, recipe formulation as well to some extent, and
absolutely.
in the background of all of that. That's the stuff I'm good at, and honestly, that's the stuff I enjoy doing. That's the stuff I started the brewery to do. The problem was I used to get to do that 5% of the time. The other 95% was a bunch of other bullshit that I didn't want to deal with, but I had to. I'll be perfectly honest. I had to, and I tried to make it work as best I could. But look, you can't be good at brewing and engineering and sales and marketing and accounting and finance and yada, yada, yada. You cannot be good at all those things. There were things I was not as good at, but the things that I love to do and the things I am good at are now all the things I get to be in charge of. And I get to be in charge of it with a team of people who are behind it, and we have the ability to pull off a lot of things that I never could have pulled off at Blank Slate on my own. So the idea of doing that is super exciting to me, and that's exactly what we're going to do. It's going to take us a little while to get it all in place. Rome wasn't built in a day and all that fun stuff, but that's exactly what we're going to do.
Awesome.
So, no, I mean, this sounds like a much more higher level role. Are you going to be mashing in at all ever? Are you going to get your hands dirty and brew?
So I have.
He did wear his boots today.
They're white.
I clean
George Washington style.
They're
nice and shiny. He's like George.
Yeah.
No, he's like George.
They're dirty white.
Washington rode the white horse. He's got the white boots.
They're
George Washington. He's like that. He's the person who said
They're dirty white. It's the chief boots, man. It's dirty. It's a long. There's a long story.
First thing I noticed when he walked in today, I was like, "Oh my God, those are fantastic!"
So the super quick background story of that. My father was a fire chief in a small town for 30 plus years. When you're the fire chief, this is like the biggest oxymoron in the world. When you're the fire chief, you have white pants, white boots, and a white coat. And you fight fires.
Yeah.
So immediately, like after a week, it turns gray and dirty and gross. But it's still like you can pick them out from everybody else and it's a totally different color. So that's what I always call my chief boots. They're white. The day I got them, they were as white as a new fallen snow. 2 days later, they were gray. From using them. So that's just how it is. So I always call
But he
them.
spit shines when they're still white.
So I always call them my chief boots. But I'm a firm proponent, no matter what level of the organization that I am, and this was always how it was at Blank Slate as well, but I knew everything that was going on in every aspect of the brewing operation day to day. The guys who brewed with me at Blank Slate, they learned how to brew because I taught them. what to do. Obviously, I did everything myself for a while and built it out from there. I don't feel confident, but I also feel it's fairly disingenuous to be ordering brewers around, go do this, go do that, here, do this, if I don't know how to do it. So I am digging into the process, and I will be digging into the process. There won't be a process in either of these breweries that I don't know how to do myself and couldn't do myself if I had to. I don't know how long it's going to take me to get through all that. That is the goal. That way, when new people come in, when they're training, it's not just, hey, here's the book of procedures that someone wrote someday. Go learn how to do this. No. I'm going to give you that book. We wrote it, and you're going to do it. And when you go when you feel like you've read it well enough, I'm going to go stand there and watch you do it. And because I know how to do it, I'll know if you're doing it right or not. So I'm a firm believer that there's no aspect of the brewing operation of this company that I should not know how to do. Does that mean I'm doing it every day? Fuck no. I'm too old for that shit. But
I'm not carrying that 50-pound sack of grain, y'all.
But hold on. No, if I need to, I will. Is it my job every day to do it? No. But the day is going to come where I'm like, hey.
This is how you carry the one sack. Now bring in 55 of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But at the same time, there's going to be a day where like I'm going to put together a recipe and like, I'm brewing this beer on the pub system. I'm doing it. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get to a point where like, I'm doing it. No one else is allowed in the room today. I'm just doing it because I need to do it. That's going to happen. So is it my job on a daily basis? Absolutely not. Is it my job to make sure the guys that are doing it on a daily basis are doing it up to the level of quality and the procedure and process that we want? Absolutely. And to me, the only way to create those processes and be able to convey them to other people is to know and have done them yourself. I spent all day today cleaning tanks. I spent part of the day yesterday cleaning tanks. We've identified we need to work on some things in tank cleaning. So what did I do the last 2 days? I dug into how we clean tanks and worked on, okay, this is how we're doing it. All right, I don't like this. I like this, blah, blah, blah. I've done that the last 2 days. Is my plan to do that every day from here forward? Of course not. But I'm going to do that until I feel like I've got a good feeling for how we do it, how we want to change it, how we want to get it in place. And we'll get that in place, and we'll get everybody trained to do it. And when I feel everybody is good on how to do it to where I don't need to be standing there when they do it, then I'll go on to the next thing. And so that's how we will work through everything. But absolutely, there's nothing in this process that I shouldn't know how to do and be able to do if I have to.
Got it. That is actually a great segue. Into
Only so that question. I never have to do
it. which is for Bobby. You guys are on the cusp of a pretty major kind of expansion and going into cans and everything. How does hiring Scott and Chris fit into that? Like, what are your kind of expectations for the company moving forward, and how is getting these two guys to fit into like how your program works kind of play into that?
Same thing we said before. Mm-hmm. Have fun. Hire people that people want to be around. Like that's at the end of the day, that whether you're a brewery or a paperclip manufacturer or whatever you are, if you can bring people into the equation that make it more fun for everybody else, that's when you're building a team. That's when you're doing something special. So we spent a lot of time over the years building our brand, getting ourselves to this point. I mean, you see the passion in both these guys when they talk about how excited they are about what those next steps are. Take that passion and then apply it to the rest of this team that's always been passionate about what we're doing and whatnot. Like, it's just a good combination. It's like it adds to the excitement for all the hard work that's been put in. That's like, there's been a lot of hard work to get us to where we are right now. To take that next step, we need special players that are going to come in here that are going to add to that excitement and just want to grow the team. The amount of people that reached out to me after these two came on board, I mean, it was like exponential. Like, oh my God, that's so exciting. You talk to anybody on this team, we have over 50 employees that work here. I think this right now is the most excited that people have been about 50 West internally, and probably, I don't know, since we opened 5 years ago. So my belief is like, if we can, when people are excited, they want to work hard, they want to do something special, and that's when you really create something special. And my hope is that we're going to follow through and make it happen. So I'm pumped. I'm excited to see it all come to fruition here.
Awesome. This is my last question before we move on to the next segment. But speaking of the larger canning runs and the bigger distribution that you guys are gearing up for, and this is for all three of you, what is kind of your biggest concern going into that? Like what issues do you guys see in front of you, or what are you kind of getting ready to tackle as that day gets ever closer?
Biggest concern. I mean, it's something new that we haven't done before.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna be.
There's a lot of players out there for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean,
right.
A branding solid. I mean, our little preliminary cans look fantastic.
Well, it's just such an interesting kind of almost departure for you guys. Like, it's a natural progression, but you guys have always like been a little different. Like your brand has, charted new paths to coin a phrase, or taken a different trip down 50.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you've got what I would always call like the compound with the livery and production facility and everything else.
Yeah.
But this is coming into a more traditional market that has a lot of volatility and stuff to it. So
we set a goal to go after it, and we hit that goal. We made that goal, and so the next step for us was to take it to the next challenge, which was the next goal, was to do this. We always said, hey, when we get to this point, that's when we're going to look at this and see, do we take this next step into it? I'm excited about the challenge. It's a little bit scary to be like, are we really going to do this? We've been talking about it for 5 years, and now we're really doing it. But we were nervous about our first challenge when we were like, hey, we're going to go sell a draft beer to this market, unlike anybody else has ever done with no package. We did it. It's exciting. Like, there's nothing. Part of being in this business is like, it's about the challenge. It's about proving to everybody that you can do something that nobody believed you can do. I don't know. I'm not the kind of person that sits there and looks and like loses sleep at night over whether this is going to happen or not going to happen. I believe that through hard work, through good people, that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. Like, we're just going to work hard. My biggest concern is like, maybe the bus doesn't run to an event and we have to like push it down a hill to get it started. You know what I mean? Like,
or catches fire.
Yeah, catches fire again. But like, no, like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make it happen.
Well, think on that, because I've got some more questions later on. But This is a good time for a break. If you're just joining us now, we are Brew Minds, and we are live at 50 West with all the guys here, and we're talking about the addition of Scott from Blank Slate and Chris from Mount Carmel, and Bobby, the owner, is here talking with us. And we have one comment from Lori Smith. She wants to know if Opera Cream Stout will be making an appearance again. Look back earlier in the show, once we were done, that question has been answered. But as Scott said, it's time to move on. Things were, appreciate the past, but it's time to go on and try new things. So, but look back earlier in the show. We're going to be posting segments on YouTube after this airs. So, Tom, I think you have the next question for us.
So I've been to way too many breweries in my life, and a lot of them are really, really similar, and all the fermenters are the same, and all the bright tanks are the same, but there's always little differences in corks in the brew house, and I'm not really familiar with Mount Carmel, so I can't really remember it. I know Blank Slate, I've seen it a million times, but like,
it's like
how,
a scaled up Blank Slate almost.
Okay. But like, how is it?
Home built.
It's Frankenbrewed for sure.
They're both Frankenbrews.
But like, how are like the Blank Slate, just kind of contrast and compare the Blank Slate Brew House, the Mount Carmel one, the 50 West Brew Pub, and the 50 West Production Works. Like, how is it different, easier, harder, whatever, in all those different brew houses?
I can't really speak for.
I would say the Blank Slate Brew House is pretty similar to the 50 West Pub Brew House in general terms, whereas the Mount Carmel Brew House was fairly similar to the 50 West Production Works Brew House. In general terms, just being larger capacity, steam power
That's
versus
like a
direct
really
fire
interesting
over
question
here.
because they all have different things that like the Mount Carmel brew house has a cold liquor tank that's plastic and a hot liquor tank that's steam jacketed. You have to run 2 passes through the heat exchanger to cool things down. On the production side, the cold liquor tank is jacketed with glycol, so it's at a perfect constant temperature. I mean, that thing's like the Cadillac, to be honest with you. over here, you have to fill up a boil kettle with water, use that as your strike water, use the hot liquor tank as your sparge water. It's just it's
which is exactly how Blank Slate worked.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. Okay. So
for the longest time, we heated we had to heat all our water in the kettle,
so
up to strike temperature, pull over what we needed for the mash. While
you
the
put
mash
it in
was
like
boiling.
a holding tank, right? You had like a See,
we had a hot liquor tank, but it had no heat source. It was just a big insulated tank.
Right.
I always used to say Blank Slate was literally home brewing 7 barrels at a time.
Yeah. Good thing
If
about
you ever had
brewing
it, if you ever set up a three pot, 3 vessel homebrew system, it's exactly what we did, just on a bigger scale.
Yeah,
that's what I have. And I can't heat my hot liquor tank. I only have 1 burner, so heat the hot liquor tank.
So did I.
With like a bunch of really heavy, really hot water up above your head.
So if any sponsors are out there and listening, like Sprinkman or anybody who wants to make a donation, I think Tom's reaching there a little bit.
Yeah. So one other thing which is kind of interesting about Mount Carmel's was it's a 2-vessel tank system, but it's a 3-vessel system. So you mash in the boil kettle, transfer everything to the water, and then run it back to the boil kettle.
That's
which
interesting.
Is completely different than anything I've ever messed with, but worked great.
So what's like some of the bells or whistles at your new toys that you're really excited to make use of?
We're getting a Whirlpool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Whirlpool. Just the efficiency of it itself. We're getting 20 barrel batches done in 5 hours, where that would take 8+ at Mount Carmel.
This one's 10 barrels and that one's 20.
Yep. Yeah. But we do double. So that one's 40 barrel fermenter, so we do double batches. Yeah. So everything's hard piped, which is nice. That's huge. So it's all just opening and shutting valves. So where you're not lugging hoses around and connecting all. They're tripping over them. Yes, dragging them around. So that's huge. That makes my life easier.
And
Blank Slate was 2 days to make 14-inch barrels. There you go.
I did a little bit of the line pulling at Moreline. It's just to kind of get a feel for how it actually works. And no, thank you. I'll just stick it out in the business office.
Well, I think I'm gonna have to start working out more, because I'm just opening valves now. I'm not dragging.
You're not as sweaty every day.
So wait, punch out 2018, the brewer versus the production manager.
Ooh.
I quit.
I'll just tell you, my doctors will not clear me to fight.
Yeah, me neither. Neither will mine. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, speaking of punch out, we saw a little bit of the video.
Sumo suits, we can do that.
Yes,
I'd be game for that for sure. I would be taking.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. You guys continually just make, as you said earlier, the best events. I get people from all across the country when punch out happens, messaging me what's this brewery boxing match you guys have going on? It's want to come join? Just come on down. We'll make it happen. So is there any gear that's coming in that you guys, or anything that you kind of seen coming down the pike that you think you want to add in, or things that people should get excited for? This is a piece of technology that
besides the fact that Scott, we put equipment on order kind of 4 months ago. Scott was here for 1 day, and we've been working with an engineering firm that's done some very large breweries in Cincinnati. And one day he came in and was like,
"Scrap it!
You didn't think of this. You didn't think of that. And everything we wanted is here." The guy called me. It was awesome. Kyle, I love you. You're the best. He called me and he's like, honestly, I probably should have all the stuff that Scott was mentioning. So yeah, we get some fun toys coming in. Lab.
I'm super excited. One of the
we should have done this from the lab.
I actually thought about that, but we weren't sure if the floor would be done.
We just got the floors done.
Oh man! Next time.
One of the things I'm personally super excited about. So you were talking about the things that I'm in charge of. One of the other things that's an aspect of the production manager role at this point is creating and building a lab.
Right.
So I get to build a lab from the ground up with a good budget to do so.
Nice.
all the things I ever always wanted to do but never could afford to do. We're in the process of putting it. So on the Beer Geek level, like toys wise, that's the biggest thing that's gonna happen here that no one will ever notice or care about. Is that we're gonna be building a lab that will be perfectly in line with the level of production that we're doing. You know, we're not gonna build a lab that'll be the envy of the world because we don't need to at this point. But you know, appropriate
the world lab.
more than appropriate for the level of production that we're doing, and with the ability obviously to grow from there where we need. I'm super stoked to be able to put that together. So that's already in progress. The room's getting built out, and we've got some equipment here already. Some equipment we're in the process of getting flushed out, and that'll all be happening. So I get to put all that together and all the procedures and all that stuff. I have a chemistry background, so like it's kind of fun to get some beakers.
Strapped all my hardware.
I get nerd. No, honestly,
stuff. I started with one thing, and also I'm like, this is really fun. Like, wait, this can do this.
honestly,
I go to Scott. I'm like, here's the deal. I ordered 3 items. I left the other stuff off.
Luckily, you left the big stuff off.
I left all that stuff off, and I gave it to him. He's like,
let me see a pen.
So honestly, here's the problem. I know they're not listening, so I'll say this. But honestly, you know, I love you, Bobby, and you're trying to do what you can do, but you don't have the knowledge base. So you go to honestly, a lot of these suppliers are bending him over and sticking a broomstick up his ass. Price wise, like they're turning $6,000 instruments into $20,000 quotes for $50 for a beaker. I'm like, I can buy 20 beakers for $50, like that kind of stuff. So we're gonna, inside baseball, if you will, but whatever. Yeah, there's.
Well, no,
don't worry. We're gonna. It's gonna be great. We're gonna put it together, and
I'll be honest. I'm
gonna buy.
I'm having a lot of fun buying that stuff. I'm sure that they would be really nice beakers, Scott.
I'm gonna buy twice as much shit as he has spec for the same money. But honestly, I'm super stoked to do that. I mean, that's the stuff that I spent 5 to 6 years, everything we did at Blank Slate, it wasn't just like, hey, give me whatever you got. It was like, no, okay, this is what I need. All right, I'm going to go find 5 guys, and I'm going to pit them against each other to get the best price I can for it, because that's what I had to do. So we're going to be doing that, obviously, at the same time. So we're going to put together a great lab, and we're going to do it, with a wonderful budget to do so. So that's probably the biggest thing I'm stoked about. We've got more equipment coming. We've got more fermenters. We've talked about the Whirlpool, which is sort of a beer geek thing to talk about. The canning side of things is going to be coming. In a couple of different iterations. It's going to be fun and exciting and interesting and also challenging, to start going into that market just from the beer standpoint. There's lots of things we need to do, lots of things we need to make sure we're controlling properly. It's one thing to be selling draft beer and it's in a keg and it's always cold all of its life. It's another thing to put stuff in a packaging and sit on a random warm shelf in some goofy beer store that doesn't move stuff and never rotates their stock. But all those things are out of your control, but you have to do everything you can to control as best as you possibly can. And that's a fun and interesting challenge, and that's absolutely what we're going to get into. And I started doing it at Blank Slate on a little bit smaller scale than we're going to be doing here, but I've been through the trials and tribulations of getting that up and running. I feel pretty confident in the way we're planning to do it and the way we're going to be rolling it out, that we're going to be able to be right there on par with everybody else as far as the quality and the consistency of what we're putting out, whether it's draft or package, cold stocked, warm stocked, whatever. I mean, that's the utmost importance for us as a brand going forward, and that's absolutely what we're investing and putting our resources into.
Awesome. Well, we have some more questions about distribution and canning, but I want to get to the fun stuff for a little bit. I want to talk about 50 Fest. But first off, if you're just joining us, we are Brew Minds, and we are here at 50 West talking about their new staffing additions in Scott and Chris, and we're talking about their big new expansion plans. But first, I want to talk about something that you guys are just going to get to experience for the first time in a different way, 50 Fest. Bobby, lay it on us. What do we got for 50 Fest? It's always one of the
bands, love music. I mean, that was the premise. We started it with let's build a stage and have a big Saturday, and then we just kept making the stage bigger and building more stages and bringing more music. And
5 stages.
It's it's fun. We gotta we'll have a camel here again, which that was a big one.
Okay, are you gonna have the kangaroo? All I want to know, I don't care about the beer. Where's the kangaroo?
Were you there for the kangaroo?
It was awesome.
It was very small. Sometimes took it for a dog.
What happened?
It's like one of the best.
I apparently missed something last year.
So
there's a camel.
Oh my god!
There was a petting zoo, and it was the
camel.
best thing ever.
We started
in here
just
so
wandering
we had
around.
a lot of families come out for it, and so we just, okay, you know how I was getting obsessed with the lab stuff, so the idea of what kind of exotic animals can we bring down for this thing? Because we're like, what else can we do? And so we're like, let's add this, and so we called these people up, and they had all right, we get donkeys and horses for this, and this package includes a camel and a kangaroo. We thought the kangaroo was gonna be big, the one that you see on
Boxing.
punching people on
Instagram, animals going wild or something.
No. This don't let me lead you wrong.
It was like a small. I'm not giving the kangaroo. It was sad. It was like
the kangaroo was great. It was adorable.
It was a small little it was very sad, and it just laid there. It was just this is sad.
No. The goats were awesome. The kangaroo was awesome, and it was adorable.
I don't know how many beers he got. He must have been dude, what's wrong with that dog? We about lost it. It's actually a kangaroo. We actually pay extra for it. Just get a dog because it'll be sad from my house, and you guys can pet it.
No, they almost let me hold the kangaroo, and it was amazing.
The camel was awesome because you're driving down Route 50, and then people are driving by we thought an accident was happening. I don't know if you understand how big a camel is. A camel is a massive animal. And they're like, where do you want to put it? We'll stick it in the front yard. So everybody drives by. Is that a camel? So yeah, it's another great year for 50 Fest.
Are you going to force me into the dunk tank again?
We can't do the dunk tank. I was the most excited person to do it in the dunk tank last year. Dunk tank is horrible.
Oh, yeah. No,
it's terrifying.
Fun.
You ever been in one?
No.
I was so excited to be fun and blah, blah, blah. It's very scary when you're in there. There's a little kid. He comes up with the ball, but when it hits, it just you crash and you think you're gonna hit your head. It's not fun. We canceled it.
Well, it gets better when these guys come up and they've got the little kids and stuff there, and it's oh, it's Jesse. I was working at Woodburn at the time, and they're like, oh, it's Jesse. Just go up 5 more feet, and the kids would still miss. Go up 5 more feet, you'd still miss, and then they'd shove the kid in the front and just have him press the button.
That's better. That's better because at least you know it's coming. When they throw the ball, you don't know if they're gonna hit it.
Well, I loved all the jocks that would just like come up and they're just like trying to kill it.
You don't have to throw it hard.
Oh yeah,
kind of like soft toss.
No, inevitably. And guys, if you're out there, like if you have a friend who plays softball, listen to your softball friends. She will set you right. Like the girls inevitably always hit it more than the guys do.
Yeah, right.
Inevitably.
It's a Fifty Fest. September 23rd is the date. We're excited about it.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah. 10 beginning to midnight.
Midnight.
Am I working that day?
Yeah, I was gonna say, noon till cops kick you out. Yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna be on parking this year, which is sad.
So that was seriously funny. So last year, me and my wife came down for 50 Fest and we parked it in one of the auxiliary lots, and we're kind of sitting there waiting for the van to come and get us. It wasn't a very long wait at all. And the van pulls up and we get it. It's fucking Bobby driving the van. I'm like, Bobby, you own this goddamn thing. What the hell are you doing driving the
You know how
bus?
passionate you are about processes with brewing? I feel that way about parking people. I've done this for so long. I get into it and I love it. And
I remember I gave you shit. I'm like, Bobby, what the fuck are you doing driving a goddamn bus?
I just like
it was like a van. It was like a
It's also kind of
15-seat passenger van. Like, Bobby, what are you doing?
It's also kind of fun when you're driving people through and they're like you're driving people back.
You get the big
First
rig
off, you get all the feedback.
Oh yeah. Well,
how was it?
and that's what you told me. I was like,
how was it?
Do you have like a mustache?
What did you like about it? And they're like, it was we like danced, we like that was awesome. This guy was awesome, like good. And then the story's fast and they're like, well, what do you do? What do you do for 50 West? And I'm like, well, I
drive the bus.
I own it. Like, why are you driving the bus?
But you told me that same thing. I was like, honestly, that's something I would do. It's like that's the best way you're going to get the feedback, being the bus driver.
You get the feedback and you get the. For me, that was a big concern for us for a couple of years. It was like, hey, we need to make sure this is really enjoyable. I don't want to run into a festival where all of a sudden people have to wait 45 minutes. The best part And if anybody out there that's watching, everybody always tries to park as close as they can. The quickest way to get to 50 Fest is to literally park in the auxiliary lot, and you get on a bus and you're here in like a second. As opposed to like park what you think is close, and then you walk, and it actually takes you longer, and it's less.
Yeah, last year we parked down by like the Growler stop.
Yeah,
and from the time I parked to the time I was walking through the ticket booth, it was like 7 minutes or something stupid.
Quick.
It was like
we work hard at that. So that's I don't know. That's my sick love.
So that's where I'm going to park this year when I come. And I'm going to see if you're driving a
I
bus
was
or not.
thinking about actually just like drinking and enjoying myself this year, but it probably won't happen. It's just
The bus got
at the end of the night. At the end of the night. I've heard the after it closes up can get pretty epic. So
yeah, it'll be fun. It's this is our 5th year doing it. It's an amazing event that we started a long time ago, and it's
I would have guessed like 3.
no, it's so funny to like,
they're 5 years old. Man.
There's nothing cooler though to look at. One of my favorite things to look back at.
It's basically your anniversary party.
Look at the first year we did it, and you see the faces, and to see how far this industry's come since the first year we did it. I mean, the first year we did it, like all these guys we grew up with were all hammered for the most part. It's our beer, we're actually serving this, and everybody's drinking it. It's great. And then like now you look at the industry and you're like, wow, this is amazing. It's come this far. Like before, we were just so excited, like about like my keg kicked before your keg did. Like, this is great. And it's just come a long way. I mean, it'll always be something that's special with us. And big thanks to our staff. It's a hard event for our staff. It's a long
huge.
day.
It's monumental.
And our volunteers help out a ton. So we're excited about it.
So I would open this up for all you guys. Like, what are some of the beers? And I'll limit it just to like your beers. What are some of the beers that you've got coming for 50 Fest that you're most excited for, that you're breaking out, or that the beer nerds should start like planning out their days or evenings?
You got a
for
bunch
now.
of stuff coming through.
We got a couple stuff.
Yeah. I would say Chris is some of his first.
That milkshake thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're gonna start to see.
That's right.
You're gonna start to see the first few beers of Chris being being here.
So we got this peach pale ale. It's almost like a New England style pale ale, not quite a New England style IPA, but peaches. Peach
a little bit of peach flavor, right?
Just a hint.
It's not. But the point is, it's not like overwhelming. Oh my God!
Yes, I fruited a pale ale.
It's an accentuating.
But it's fantastic. We used Mosaic and Azaka in that one. Both kind of stone. Well, Azaka being more stone fruit, but anyway, that's a good one. Milkshake IPA. We got this dry hop sour coming out. I think we get 1 or 2 new ones in the next week or so. Those will be.
You got 2 weeks. That's time to back out of beer.
Yeah. The tricky part is obviously you've been on board for a month.
This is week 4. Starting.
Yeah, so you've been on board for a month-ish. I've been on board for like a week, and that's not even full time. So the tricky part is, it'd be awesome if we had enough time. Like 50 Fest, we're going to blow it up. We're going to make a zillion new, awesome, cool things. We're almost a little behind to do that. There's some things that are in the tanks going, but it's not going to be like, look, here's 30 new things we brewed for 50 Fest. It's not going to be that way. And it could probably. I mean, we haven't really discussed it yet, but we'll probably try to maybe put together a few keg infusions.
Sure.
Just some one-off kegs of a few different things that are already, so we try to do a few different things.
Fruit, maybe?
That is something.
Fruited punch.
I'm kidding, man.
But good. So the whole thing is like I don't want to build an expectation of it's like, hey, we're here and it's new and it's great. Come to 50 Fest because it's like, boom, we're gonna have a bazillion things. Like we're a little tight on time to be able to say there's a bunch of things
coming in time. I think everybody this audience that's watching out there, we're building specifically for this audience.
Awesome.
Yeah. So you can know that's coming. That's coming, and
it's going to take.
Well,
a
you
long
heard
time.
it here first. Big things coming.
From our standpoint, I think
coming from the bus driver.
Getting back to the business side of it.
You really need to update your business card to like bus driver.
No. We talked about.
That's a great title.
You were like head brewery janitor for a while, right?
Bus driver. It's legit bus driver.
Yeah.
Actually, I should just change that.
You got
to have a CDL CDL for it and
Was it the
stuff too.
CDL?
So that's
I
yeah.
almost got a CDL. The whole company I worked for, like literally, like half people that worked there had CDLs because we used to do these like.
Don't let Mike Stokes hear this, man.
I
Mike
should.
Stokes
They're
hears this. He's gonna hire you
expensive.
on the brew bus.
We're building towards an event that is specifically
Thank
catered to that, and you'll know it when it's coming, and we'll clue you guys in.
Awesome.
But I think that's one of the things I think that, I mean, you guys both touched on when you came here. Was listen, there's an audience out there that is starving for this, and we have the setup. There's not a lot of places out there that have the setup like we have. So that'll be coming. It's not going to be 50 Fest. We will have some of the new beers that you've been kind of coming through the pipeline. Will be available there. But the other one probably coming a little bit later in the year.
It's going to be somewhat of an iterative process. I mean, it's going to be, we're doing this, and then this comes out, and then it's not going to be just like all of a sudden one day, boom, here's all the new everything like all at once. It's going to be something.
There'll be something.
We'll be hitting them hard.
Well,
sure.
no, don't get me wrong. There'll be points in time where it's like we got this, but I look at it as honestly we're probably in a 6-month process.
We got a
To
bread
really-
like
to
co-pilot
really
in the tank
get-
right now. So
Wait, what?
what?
Well, we know what we're doing after the show.
Tank.
In a tank.
Oh.
And here's the crazy thing. So we kind of, but here's the thing.
Hey, now I'm gonna be back.
But here's the thing. So we both kind of inherited it.
yeah.
We both kind of inherited it.
Yeah.
Like,
It's been in there for a
so
little
we've
bit.
it was there before you got here. I was there before I got here. So we're gonna look at what we're gonna do with that. And
Yep.
we definitely don't want to sully the history of bread as my co-pilot. It's a beautiful beer, but at the same time, it's like it's a little bit of a new generation. We want to make sure we're doing things.
Well, everything has to
right.
evolve. That's
Exactly.
the natural,
It's an evolution.
natural
It's an
process.
evolution. So
Absolutely right.
So yeah, we haven't even honestly. I don't even know.
Some people do.
I mean, have you tried it yet? Have you tried it yet? Because I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, I've tried
Right.
Oh yeah.
So,
You haven't tried it yet.
no, so we haven't.
Well, yeah, no,
But I'm saying like we haven't even
pick
all
up the
sat
camera.
down.
We'll just take the laptop.
So we haven't even all sat down and
guys.
decided like what are we doing? So there's just a lot of those kinds of things where it's just like, hey, there's a lot of things hanging out there. We got to get them. We got to get them the way we want them. And there's gonna be a sussing out period, if you will, of all the things we're working. But it's all going to be every day. Every day is going to be another step forward.
Well, I think our kind of last question for the night, because we're coming up on an hour, and that's usually our go-to time. Bobby, this is mostly for you, and the other guys can feel free to join in. I don't want to get too much into your plans because I'm sure things are still being worked out. We know cans and a bigger distribution is in the future. What can you tell us about those plans right now? When can we expect?
Q4. We're running a timeline.
What sort of a timeline are you willing to talk about?
Q4.
That's like next month, dude.
Yeah. But technically, that's
Just be glad the bus driver didn't say next week.
that's December 31st, technically.
Q4.
Yeah.
Q4.
True. I guess.
We've been working on.
EOI.
It's pretty.
Yeah,
sweet.
right.
It's fun. It's fun. It's so much fun to go through it. Like, I think it's going to be fun for our company, our staff, everybody that works here. Growlers suck. Like, they just suck. Okay?
So never buy them. Okay, never come here and buy them.
No.
Kidding.
I say this all the time. Like, you don't know whether you put it on the floor or you seatbelt it in your passenger seat. I think everybody's just excited to finally be able to be like, boom.
Yeah.
And all the different stuff we
cool.
do. Like, there's a lot of fun things that you can do with cans that we build into our programming that we haven't had the opportunity to do. So Q4 is when it's going to be coming out of the pipeline. There was a lot of thought and process involved in developing those. We got a cool story to tell here. 50 West is in one of my favorite things. Alex does all our graphic design for us. Just a 50 West through and through guy. He's going on 50 soon. And one of my favorite things is, and I think as our company grows, it's really becoming true, is that every year we're going to kind of identify employees and just tell them, get on 50 and go. Like, go take a week off and just drive it and then come back.
Absorb
Because
it.
I don't think you can fully understand how special a story that is until you've done it. And everybody that's done it, it's like I don't want to get religious here, but
Some
it's
of them come back.
It's like
some
they
of them
saw
don't.
Jesus, and then like someone else sees them and is like, Like they're like the people that have seen it, they almost get offended by the people that haven't seen it. We'll do beer names and they'll be like, well, maybe we should call it like Mountain Beer. Mountain Beer? They haven't seen what it looks like in Utah. They haven't seen it. You know, like they get all excited. So there was a lot of in that process of going through that storytelling. There's just this really great story to tell, whether it be the places that you go on 50, the people we see. I mean, we have so many jokes from just driving 50, like on long distances, the people we've seen that are just like amazing stories behind them in both ways. That like, it's just a 50 is the landscape of America. Like that road was one of the first roads to go all the way across. And so to tie all that together, put it into a package, attach a fantastic beer to it, and be able to sit at your house and enjoy that, like that's exciting for us as individuals right now. So we're pumped about it.
Now, earlier in the week, and so we've talked about the good stuff, but we've got some hard questions for you. Earlier in the week, Tom got some data, I think from IRI, about how sales are going in the beer category, and that include macro
it was the,
as well.
Beer Institute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all beer.
So you're paying like the $10,000 it takes to get IRI data?
No.
Good for you.
I got sources. I got it from somebody.
There are places on the internet where some are fearful to go, but some of us are.
You're on the dark web. You're on the dark web buying beer information.
I know nothing. I do less, but I know people.
And if the NSA is listening, we just drink. We're not important. It's okay.
It's not. It's all about who you know.
So the Beer Institute had data about sales to distributors over last month versus 2016.
Yeah.
There were only 9 states in America where sales to distributors were up.
Yeah.
2 states were even, 39 states were down. Ohio was down 2.7% of manufacturer sales to distributors. Now, again, that includes Budweiser, Miller, Yuengling, Sam Adams,
everything.
Tree.
And that data did not, from what we can tell, include tap rooms
No, nobody knows anything about tap rooms. That's the important. Whatever number you see from the industry.
That's a great area
about tap rooms.
Nobody ever has data on that.
And a lot of that also doesn't include chain stores that are like BC's Bottle Lodge or. Okay,
so
sales to
distributors. Self-distribution either. So Rheingeist, not all really reflecting those numbers.
I would say that the
reflecting.
InBev stuff.
The biggest thing is
use those numbers largely because of those.
Well,
those are driving a way larger number than
if InBev Miller Coors is off 0.01%, that impacts the entire market 3%.
Well, you've also got. There was a separate article this week. Sierra Nevada is down 6.9% year over year. And I mean, that's huge for Sierra Nevada, 6.9%.
Yeah.
Boston Beer is theoretically at risk of not being a craft brewery anymore, because if they begin to make more Angry Orchard and the
Truly and
their numbers
like Coney Island,
their total volumes flips into another category.
If you don't have a majority all-malt flagship or beers, then you are no longer craft beer by the Brewer Association definition.
Which will totally fuck the numbers for a year.
Until they change the definition.
Until they change the definition.
Second time for Sam Adams, by the way.
Well, the pointed part of my question on that is, given all that data, given the issues that we know in the industry, going into the grocery, as I call it, the grocery store game, is a calculated risk.
Yeah.
So, and you guys you and I have talked in the past, and I think in what 5 years of covering the industry, or 5 or 6 years of covering the industry, has taught me, like, you guys have a pretty good game plan of it. But
I think,
what are your, in as much as you can tell us, what are your plans to kind of take that on? Like that's a fairly big risk going into, like, there's only 84 cubic space usually in the beer aisles of shelf space. It's a crowded game. Like, how are you going to differentiate yourself and make headway into what some might call headwinds?
I can tell you 2 shelf spots in 12 Krogers that are open right now. I'm just saying.
It's a great question.
Or will they be open in a week?
Never. I won't allow it.
I've looked at the IRI data. I've looked at it very, very intent. Like, I understand it. What you're seeing right now is you're seeing from a national and regional level a lot of pressure. a lot of losses.
Mm-hmm.
From a local level, you're seeing gains. You've probably seen that taper off a little bit. We are the third best-selling local in this marketplace with zero package. So for us, we look at that as we have more on-premise sales than most of the locals that are out in the marketplace, and we did that with no package, which package has always been an advertisement for your brand.
Right.
Like when you open up your fridge at home, I'm assuming there's probably a lot of local brands in there that are represented, and 50 West is probably not one of those. So our thought process was
in the basement.
But
I drank all mine.
Some special releases.
So how we looked at it was we said, all right, when I said we had a goal before, we went out and said, listen, this is our goal. We're going to go out there and we're going to fight and we're going to get these tap handles and we're going to make this happen with no package. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be harder than if we did have package. But if we can do that, then we think we can fight just as hard as any brand out there. And ultimately, that's going to lead to our ability to make our way into that market. So that was our bet that we made. We could be totally wrong. If we are totally wrong, then we just work harder and we push harder and we figure out a way to make ourselves better. And that comes with adding people like Scott and adding people like Chris. Like, this is something we firmly believe in. It's something we can go after, and you can look at all the numbers and they can tell you, hey, beer's dropping as a category as a whole. You can say the local space is too crowded. I think we have a hell of a story to tell, and I think that if we can create special, if we can make it special for people, there'll be an opportunity for us.
Coming from essentially the same role that Bobby has, obviously with a different company, looking at kind of this organization from the outside, given my previous roles, couple of things to keep in mind. This brand has existed for 5 years with no package. If you are a brewery, look at basically any brewery, for the most part, other than the neighborhood brew pub kind of thing, but any brewery that's meant to do any serious amount of distribution that's open in the last 2 to 3 years, they're packaging within 3 to 6 months of opening.
Yeah.
And it was in their plan from the beginning. Yep. We're going to open and we're going to do draft and tap room for X amount of time, and we're going to be in the package,
Self-distribute for 3 or 4 months,
and we're going to be whatever it is. But there's something to that. But the point is, within a year, all of those brands, when they begin, they intend to be packaging in some way, shape, form. Whether it's bottles, cans, their own line, mobile can, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Within a year, they all are building with the intention of doing it because they know that's what they have to do to survive. This brand has built and survived for 5 years, never having the intentions, but never having the abilities, intentions, whatever it is. Just didn't do it. Didn't have to do it. Didn't need to do it. Didn't want to do it. Whatever it is. The point is, this brand has survived and grown over 5 years as a draft-only brand. You look at the market just locally. I'm not talking national trends, Sierra Nevada. I'm just talking locally. Because here's at the end of the day, you can talk about the national trends. You can talk about the regional trends. This is a local company. Blank Slate, Mount Carmel, is all. If you can't deal and understand with your local market, it doesn't matter what the fuck's happening in California or Oregon. It's totally irrelevant to what you're dealing with. So you have to look at it as the local market. In this local market, you look at of the breweries that are as old as this brewery. This is the only one that are left. Yeah, this is the only one that doesn't pack. No, but seriously, I went in. Blank Slate went into package from a volume standpoint well before it ever should have. It was a calculated risk. I'll get into it another day. Maybe it didn't work. Blah blah blah. Point is, this brand has built and survived on being a draft-only distribution, taproom, brew pub, et cetera, for 5 years. Now they're looking to move into the distribution game. Whereas guys that are starting up today, if they don't have a plan for package distribution the day they open to be there within 6 months to at most a year, they're fucked before they start. So you look at what this brand's been able to do, eschewing that model. Now you say, okay, now we're in a position we want to start going into that market. To me, that puts you a little bit of a step ahead of all the other guys. This brand has 5 years of traction. As a brew pub, as Pro Works, as draft, bars, restaurants, so
Livery.
Blah, 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 blah. But the point is that they have 5 years of traction as a brand. Now you're going to say, hey, we're finally ready to add the package piece of that. That's a much bigger deal than, hey, we're a brewery that just started 3 months ago, and now we're adding package, and we're going to statewide distribution within 6 months of opening because we can't find anybody to take all this shit.
Right.
That's a totally different thing.
And just,
I'm not saying that they can't be successful
just
in that,
so you know,
but
like if you want to look at it from the opposite side, we are battling. We're not going to go. We could go statewide tomorrow. I got people that are like, oh, we'll run this up and we want this. Like that opportunity is there, and we're like, no, we'll take the next step, which is our market here. So we'll go after that. And I'd be willing to bet when we add the pieces. I'd put my team up against anybody else's team in the marketplace. Like that's our goal. You build a special team. You have fun doing what you're doing, and it'll take care of itself. But you have to be willing to work hard, and you can't make excuses for yourself. You have to be like, listen, we're going to figure out a way to make this happen.
I have one last hard question, and it ties in with that. So from the data that we're seeing, there is starting to be a little bit of a generational shift. The general wisdom is always that the kids of today will drink what their grandparents drank, as opposed to what their parents drank. Like most of us,
who the hell said that?
I've heard that.
Yeah, you got to read all the market research and whatnot.
I've gotten
but-
my parents to drink the beer that I drink. I'm going this far away from them getting to stand in the bottle line.
We're looking at a meta level, not a microcosm. But so the wisdom with that right now is that millennials and the kind of the tail end of the Gen X, you can call them Zennials or Gen Y or whatever you want to call them, are largely drinking like wine or liquor because their grandparents were drinking largely liquor more so than wine, whereas the parents, like the boomers, were beer drinkers. So that is kind of a concern amongst the craft beer crowd that how do you get a generation that, it enjoys it, is embraced craft because it's local oriented, it's a unique experience, and there's a lot of brand identifiers there that millennials tie into, but they're still largely going towards either malt beverage, wine, or a liquor. How do you guys like mitigate that? I think you've done a lot to do that. The livery, the kayaking, the running, the cyclery, all that stuff. Like what you guys have built, that whole brand ties into that. And I think I would go so far as to suspect that has probably gone a long way to build a community there, to build your brand and make inroads into that generation. But for all three of you, two of you working at different companies and now here at 50 West, like how do you see your way forward for craft? Not just for 50 West, but what does craft need to do to really like get into the millennials, which really are the future, and get them to start buying craft wine?
You want to answer?
Tom wants to chime in.
I also want to say that is it
He's going to answer your
craft
question.
or is it independent?
That's a different show.
Okay.
That's a different show. And if you're just joining us, we are Brew Minds, and we're about to dive into something really interesting. So,
okay, you have to create.
and I'd like to hear from all three of you.
Okay,
on this.
from my standpoint, it's you have to create an experience for consumers that resonates with them on a personal level. So that means that you make fantastic beers that they like, that they enjoy the taste. You create a brand for them that they can identify with, and it defines who they are. I mean, I see it all the time. It's almost sad to say, but taste, aroma, the entire everything that goes into what makes up this beer is a part of it. But there's a lot of people that may just sit at a party and just like the idea of holding that brand in their hand and how that defines them as a person. The same way that the shirt that you wear defines who you are. Like there's a part of that in there. So if you can figure out a way to resonate with people in a way that they say, oh, it makes them like, that's the kind of person that I am, I think that they're going to be more willing to reach out to your brand. At the end of the day, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to get everybody to want to drink beer. I guarantee you, all of you have had a drink in the last month that wasn't a beer, right? Like, Tom, I like bourbon. Okay. But
in the last month, I drank like a bottle and a half of bourbon.
Okay. So like
in the
But
past,
that's
in the past,
extenuating
17
circumstances.
days, I drank almost a barrel.
So you're gonna have, yes, could they be going a little bit away from beer? Absolutely, but you want to just make sure that your brand can, it extracts a certain emotion from a certain type of person that they grab and go, that's how I want to feel. It had, when we were doing our cans, one of my favorite exercises that we did was that we were talking about this, and we were talking about how that can makes you feel when you hold it in your hand, and this is one of the best ones. So there was a beer brand that had a picture of a it had a plane landing on water. Is the picture that's on it? It's on it. It's the name of the brand. It's a plane landing on water. It's a picture of it, cartoon picture. And we're talking about that. Like, if I'm going on a freaking plane that lands on freaking water, I'm not gonna buy the beer that has a picture of a plane that lands on water. Like, talking about it for how that beer feels when you hold it in your hand. You want this thing that you're wearing freaking the coolest look outfit you have or whatnot, and you've got this beer in your hand that just matches it perfectly. But a plane landing on water is probably not the picture that you're buying.
Right.
And so for us, it was all about how does that story resonate? Our story is this road trip. Road trips are romantic. There's something about them that everybody can relate to in a certain sense. And so it's telling that if you can relate that back to consumers to understand that yes, you're always going to get a solid product that tastes great and meets all the aspects that they're looking for there, but then also meets their internal mindset of who they are as a person. That's the perfect match that I think separates you. And I think that's one of the struggles you see in the beer world. We walk around, we go to CBC. There's thousands of breweries out there. There's not thousands of breweries with a story that they're trying to tell. A lot of them it might just be I make this beer, right? And so,
they're trying to manufacture a story. Where there's really not one to tell.
You got they're an advertising company that makes beer,
which is
marketing company,
marketing on that side, yeah. But I think that it's.
I'm good. No.
It's very easy to, and it's controversial for me to say things like this, but I think there's a piece of it that you have to be mindful of, that plays into it, and being able to understand your consumers and apply to those needs and what they want. I think it's part of it. For us, we have fun with it. I hope for us when we were designing the cans, we took the bus out front and we said, "All right, you got a mini fridge sitting there right now. You open it. What do those cans look like?" That's what our brand needs to look like, right? That was fun. That was a fun exercise for us to go through and be able to translate that through. Because we know that at the end of the day, the product that's inside of it is going to be fantastic. We know that the consumers are going to love that. So how do you take the next level of it and just dial it up more?
So Scott, I would put that question to you.
Yeah. So for me, again, I could come from a little bit different angle, sort of similar to Bobby, being an owner and having to deal with that level of stuff. I never like to get bogged down in the generational shifts and demographics and blah, blah, blah. I was like, look, man, I'm just trying to make beer. If people like it, they don't like it, whatever. I've learned some things along the way. More specifically, the millennial generation. They are the generation of the future, et cetera, et cetera. And if you look at some of the data and research, blah, 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 the millennial generation is more about experience than they are about things. So, the idea of having $20,000, $30,000 in savings does not appeal to them as much as the idea of having the experience of $10,000 and taking a trip around the world.
Yeah.
So they're very much about experience.
I want to meet these millennials that have $10,000.
I don't know who. I am, and this is honestly where it bugs the shit out of me. I'm like, look, this is what these articles are being written about these people. I don't know any of those people personally. I've never met them. I don't know if they truly exist or if this is a fabrication of the media. I don't know. But if you take what they say to be truth, which I'll argue is or isn't, but if you take that to be truth, they're very, about experience. So their experience above other things. So okay, you need to build an experience. So what you're able to do here at 50 West is you can build an experience. They've got multiple things they can be involved in. There's the bike shop, there's the kayak, there's the volleyball leagues, there's all those different things that are more experience driven. And it's hey, along with it, there's this brand that goes with it. And there's a very good way to connect with that. You look at, I don't mean to harp on it, but you look at what we did at Blank Slate. It was a very different experience. But, the idea was it's a cool place to come hang out and drink some beer. That's pretty much all I got to offer you. To most millennials, they're well, that's not enough. I need more. The average age of people in our tap room at Blank Slate was 45 to 50 years old. I love those people. They're great. They come in. They don't cause a ruckus. They drink their beer. They pay their bill. They don't walk out on their taps. Wonderful thing. But the point of it is, most of those people also drink at home 90% of the time. So you're not, it's great to have those people. They're wonderful customers, obviously, but you can't sustain on just being a niche of a certain market or a certain demographic. You really have to try to appeal to all as best you can. And what they're able to do here is really appeal to a lot of the demographic levels. You can come in here on a Wednesday night to the brew pub. It's a very chill environment in there right now. You can come out, you come in, you can hang out at the bar, you can talk to the bartenders, you can have that chill environment. You can roll across the street and there's like 60 kids over there beating the shit out of each other playing volleyball right now. if that's what you want to do, that's great. But the point is, like, you can do both of those things all within this one entity.
And I think
and that's important.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the most exciting things is, like, you do both hammer at home. Is like you have the opportunity. I think you have to think about who that demographic is that you're trying to hit. And, like, I get so excited when you guys talk about the brew pub and, like, getting those production levels up. Like, you're missing this mark of these people that want special beers that you have an opportunity to release like nobody else in the city can do. So it's like there's a certain thing for each. The beers that we're going to roll mainstay in the market are not going to be uber niche beers that are out there. Now, are we maybe going to have an event that features a ton of really niche beers with maybe a really special beer being released in a package that you can't buy at the grocery store?
Are we going to have this event sometime in November? Or
Could there maybe be a date? Is there like a range that we can?
Next year.
There's different people have.
Production manager's like, no, we're not.
I don't know, production manager.
I'm driving the bus.
I'm driving this bus. Production manager's like, no, the bus doesn't have gas.
All right, but
He's driving the bus.
All I care about.
He's driving the bus. I've got the
I get
handbrake.
to drive the bus. We're gonna get it outside our park.
But will the bus have 4 or 5 different varieties?
All right, we got to bring this to a close. So I'm gonna do this McLaughlin group style and bring it around the table, just lightning round. Tom,
How fucking old are you, dude?
I grew up watching PBS. I watched PBS. Like, I might be 33 years old. I am secretly 70.
If you're Corey McLaughlin group, you're absolutely 70. Go ahead.
I love McLaughlin group. Don't get me started. Tom, what are you most excited for with 50 West?
10 seconds, go!
Go!
Just to see the amazing band's going to come out. I honestly, after this conversation, I feel really excited about the band that's going to be coming out here soon.
Wrong, Chris. Okay, Scott, you're next.
That's totally McLaughlin.
It is.
All right, what was
It's
the question
best.
again? Sorry.
What are you most excited for? Coming on board with 50 West. And
So the thing I'm most excited for is honestly taking a brand that's been around the market for 5 years and is well respected in the market, and being able to take it to the next level, help it grow, help it be successful, help it. My goal is honestly, if a random person walks into Cincinnati and they're like, all right, what's the breweries in this town? They don't know shit about Shinola. And people are going to say, well, there's Rheingeist. They're going to say there's Mad Tree. And then they're going to say there's 50 West. And it's all going to be interchangeable as far as there's 3 or 4 breweries in this town that people know and people talk about and people go to, and this is going to be one.
And you'll be like,
Next.
what about canoeing? Do any of those other breweries have that? No.
Solid one of those.
What was the question again? Sorry.
What are you most excited for coming on board with 50 West? Next 6 months.
To be honest, I'm excited about. I like our team a lot. Super excited to work with Scott. Bobby's been awesome. Other guys, Ryan, Josh, they're just amazing. Hard workers. I'm just excited to work with everyone. It's been a super fantastic environment. So I just know because of that, we're going to pump out some fantastic.
And if I could throw one more thing in, just because I found this out tonight, I am super excited about Chris's wicker hat. I have never seen it before.
I was hoping someone would bring it up.
I am stoked as shit to figure out where you got that from.
Where's your what? I can make it everyone.
It's in the car.
Bobby from Cincinnati, wicker hats, new fad.
Your thoughts on the
Wrong. Bobby, what are you most excited for?
To watch our team mold together, and I just like to compete. I've always liked to compete. I think we really have something special with this team. We keep talking about this, but to watch us succeed in different elements of the beer world and do it really, really well, and have a team behind it, and then there's nothing better than after. One of the things I love about events and things is like when a whole team works really hard on something, and then you achieve it, and then you all just like are like exhausted, but at the same time you high five each other like we freaking did this. I'm excited about that moment, and I know it's going to happen in 4 or 5 different phases in 2018, and it's going to be because of all the people that work together to make it happen. It's fun. It's fun to watch. I can't. I wish Max was here. I wish some of our other guys.
I think he's listening.
Yeah, he chimed in. He was listening earlier.
Question?
No, he was just watching.
He gets it. I mean, he knows what I'm talking about. There's just an excitement level, and I'm excited for the rewards that are going to. I'm excited for this team to celebrate the hard work, and I know this is the right team to do it. I don't know how this all happened. I know it's the most backwards thing ever. It involved me calling Scott and being like, Scott, I'm looking at this lab stuff. I literally know nothing about you. When I come over, and then the next thing you know, it was like, all right, well,
yeah, I'll come over. I'll come over as long as you pay me.
It's like, I gotta need money. So.
No, but that's not true.
I'm a little strapped right now.
That's not true.
You want money?
No, it's not true.
You could have. There was you had a million opportunities in the state. You really did. And I don't know.
900-ish thousand, maybe.
I just think it's pretty cool. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited to continue to watch this team grow. I love what you guys do. I love watching how far you guys have come.
Getting a little better every show.
No, we try a little bit better every show.
I always say that the brew scene in Cincinnati was built on the bloggers. Like it started with the blogging and then the media pieces that started to pick it up. But
go back to the Hopperders. I mean, they were the original.
Yeah, props to Carlin.
That started
the original proponents.
That started all this momentum because I'll never forget. All of a sudden, it was like, somebody wrote like a 6-page article. Like, I was beautiful photos, and I'm like, whoa!
I remember the first time I came in with Emily, and she went to school with one of you guys too, like either you or Whit, like in the original. My photographer Emily.
Oh, you. You.
Yeah. No, I think she went to high school with one of you guys.
Emily was from. What you go to high school? Country Day?
I don't know. I'd have to call her up, but she's an area girl. But
anyway, it was fun to watch.
Well, I mean, like I'm happy that I turned writing about beer into free beer and videos. Fucking Carla turned writing about beer into a goddamn fucking
college into a college degree.
Like that's an achievement there.
This whole thing is stupid. How much it's happened.
I mean, I go back.
It's so stupid.
I go back to the days of trying to figure out how to put something together, and the scene at the time was they had like the monthly tappings at Rock Bottom when they did their one beer of the month they were allowed to do, and Mitch was there, and they would there was this that there was 2 or 3 times a year where he would do he would release his barrel aged something, or he had some big huge double IPA or whatever, and it's like when that was releasing at Rock Bottom for the monthly beer of the month. Everybody who fucking knew anybody was there, and the Hopperders were there, and they were meeting. They were having group gatherings of the 20 people that were in their club group, whatever you would call it at the time. Like that was the epicenter of the world. When's the last time you ever thought Rock Bottom was the epicenter of freaking anything? And that's nothing against Rock Bottom at all, in any way, shape, or form. But in those days, like. When Rock Bottom had their monthly beer of the month tapping, that's where everybody who was anybody was at, and that's where networking was happening, and breweries were built,
kind of blossomed from there.
Partnerships were built, and shit was created out of those days. I'm talking 2005 to 2010 time frame, but that was where you went if you wanted to look at trying to do something, start something, or just try to find a job in a brewery. You went to the monthly Rock Bottom tappings because that's where it all started at. And props to Rock Bottom. They are what they are, but that's where it all truly started in this town. Like I say, you take what they do with the grain of salt these days because now there's 40 other places. In those days, well, if you want to go pre-2005-ish, I think 2005 is when Mount Carmel started. You go pre-2005, they were the only fucking brewery in the city, period. No other way to count it. They were the only place to get beer that was made in this city was Rock Bottom, 2003, 2004, 2005 period. I know that's like ancient goddamn history for a lot of people, but it ain't that fucking long ago. So think about that. And it can all change on a dime any day. But like that was where like a lot of people started. I mean, that's where
But thankfully,
That's where Rivertown. I mean, honestly, like connections I made there built whatever. I know Rivertown would probably say the thing. Some connections they made there. Mount Carmel would probably say the thing.
Yeah.
All the old school guys would say like they made connections there at those things, and that was the beginning of the history. And it's just kind of crazy to think about where we are now compared to that.